Side note.
Don't have sex.
Don't do it.
Yo, it's been a minute. Welcome back to Posting Up with the Parkers.
What's up, you guys? It has been a hot minute since we've done one of these videos where we just actually sat down.
Sorry about that.
We just sat down and kind of just talked about our beliefs or like heavy topics or whatever. We've been doing a lot of like travel, baby, focusing on the house, those kind of videos, which we like too, but I think these videos we like probably the most just because
definitely
powerful can be.
Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about premarital advice, premarital journey. We've had a few people just ask us just how that process looked, what you guys do, what are you doing differently. So we're not
what we did differently. We're already married, but
so we're not experts, but we're just going to talk about what we did, how God worked through us, what God did for us. We're not counselors.
No. Well, kind of.
We're not marriage counselors or anything like that. We're just here to help and have God speak through us. That's it.
All right, so we're just going to be touching on like different pieces of advice or things that we've been through. We're not going to go like in a certain order. We're just going to kind of go off like different ideas and then kind of just go with it, I guess.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so one of the one of the most popular like questions that we get is if we've ever gotten, or at least me, if we've ever gone to like premarital counseling or anything like that. John and I didn't do premarital counseling, but we did do a class through our church, and I definitely think that was like huge. It helped so much. We learned a lot about each other. We've been together for so long, we didn't even think that could be possible. But that class really opened up doors and like really gave us the foundation that we needed to like set our marriage on before we were married. So I would highly recommend taking like a premarital class or anything, especially through the church. I feel like that's huge. Yeah,
definitely. We chose the church because we wanted to get the right advice. You know, you want to get the right advice that's right for you and your spirit, and you and your household, or however that's going to work. You got to be careful of just people just feeding you advice and feeding you insight and wisdom, because it may not just be what God is actually saying. What is that counselor saying? What's that counselor saying compared to what God is saying?
Right.
So depending on how you're living, depending on where you're at in your faith or wherever you're at in your life, that's just something to think about. It's also good for just individual, to really speak about yourself as a man or yourself as a woman, getting to know yourself before you actually commit yourself fully to this woman or this man.
Yeah,
it's the biggest responsibility of your life, as a man and as a woman. So being able to lock that down and get those details and really figure yourself out, it's a good start.
Yeah. And to add on that, I think just like praying and seeking the Lord's word before you get married is so important. Like, I think like God's going to tell you whether or not this is your husband or your wife. It might take some time, but you definitely need to pray about it and seek his guidance, because I think that's just the most important thing to do. Like, he's going to bless you with the right husband, the right wife. So praying about it is really important.
Yeah, I definitely prayed before putting a ring in it. And I prayed about that price.
Another part of that premarital class, it had an aspect to where like you had to like think about what your future goals are and like what your expectations are for a marriage. And I think that's huge, because honestly, like, women could go into thinking a marriage is one thing, and then the man could be going into it thinking it's another. And if those views or those expectations don't align, it could definitely create problems. Not that it'll end your marriage, but it can definitely be harder. And you want to equip yourself with all those tools that you can before you get married, just so you can have them when something does pop up and you know how to fix it, or you know how to go about it.
Yeah, those are the things you want to pretty much uproot and dig out, like getting rid of this television Hollywood thought of this is what a marriage should be, or getting rid of this social media picture of this is how a marriage should be, and then looking at your past and if you come from a broken household, forgetting that and looking at your parents saying this is how a marriage should be. Like, this is your marriage, this is your journey, this is something that God has for you.
Yes.
So those things got to really be thought about, and in the right counselor's hands, you can really uproot those and really figure out what a marriage should look like in Christ.
Right. And even Johnny went big picture, which it was great. Like, that's exactly it. But also like the small things. So like like, what roles do you guys play as, like, in a marriage? Like, Johnny, when we got married, expected me to, like, cook and clean all the time, which I definitely want to do, but now that I'm pregnant, like, it's just not, I mean, I'm tired all the time. But, like, those are things, like, little things like that you have to talk about, like, who's going to take responsibility of what, or finances or whatever. And that's another big one, like, financial aspect of getting married. You guys have to have, like, a realistic viewpoint on what finances look like, or who's going to handle finances and things like that. Like, I think finances and maybe, like, people's beliefs are probably the biggest things that people fight about in a marriage.
Definitely. That's just from what we've seen and what we know.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
And like she said, those things change a lot, yeah. Right? Like, me thinking, like, hey, she's going to cook more, blah, 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 do this, do that. Mm-hmm. That stuff changes. And as a man, you got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to know that, okay, she's pregnant. She just can't. I'm working from home. She's going out to work. She comes home. She's tired. So I'm not going to expect her to do this and that. So that's just, you know, putting down your pride, putting down the thoughts of what you thought a marriage should be, mm-hmm. or what you think America says a marriage should be. And, you know, being a man about it and praying, asking, you know, seeking advice and wisdom. You know, God tells the man to be understanding of the wife. And to continue on the finances, let's just be real with ourselves. We had to move in with our parents, mm-hmm. With her parents, and save money. And you see that a lot more in California, obviously, with everything being super expensive, especially in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. But I mean, we just have to be real with ourselves. Right? She wanted this type of marriage. I mean, this type of marriage, this type of wedding. Yeah. And if she wanted that type of wedding, then we needed to make some sacrifice and say, hey, we need to go somewhere and save up. Her parents accommodated us very generously. Mm-hmm. So that's just something to think about too. Yeah. You know, not just the ring, but everything. You know? Yeah.
And not only that, I mean, like, we would have been fine in the apartment that we were living in, but we also want to buy a house and we want to do other things with our life, like the wedding and have a baby and things like that. And so just being realistic about finances and how it would be in a marriage is super important, for sure. Absolutely.
And the biggest thing, what we do, why we find ourselves so blessed financially, why we find ourselves to have pretty much anything we want and what we pray for, we pay our tithes.
Yes. Tithe and offering is huge.
Huge. And so, again, we're not a pastor. We're not going to tell you what to do. All we know is we put God first in our finances. We submit ourselves to Him in every financial way, and it comes back to us. Exactly.
He has never failed to provide for us, one, but not only that, He goes above and beyond. Like, everything that we've had, we never would have thought we would have this, any of it, honestly, before we were 30, even at the younger ages that we are. But we are because we tithe and we put the Lord first. We give Him more than what He asks for. It's just, I don't know, it's something that is super important in our lives and in our faith, and we're happy to do it. Like, He gives us so much, and it's just like, what more can I give back to Him that He won't give to me, if that makes sense? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, another thing that you guys should do is figure out why you want to get married. People have different, just like the, you know, different aspects, or I'm sorry, different expectations of getting married. Like, why do you want to get married? A lot of the times, like, Christians get the bad rap of, like, oh, they just get married hecka young or hecka quick because they want to have sex. Which, I mean, low key, that's true. I mean, yeah, I want to have sex with Johnny, and I'm not going to do that outside of a marriage. That just leaves us real quick. Okay. Side note.
Don't have sex.
Don't do it.
Before marriage.
Before marriage. Yeah.
Before marriage.
I'm telling you, you guys, if you abstain from having sex and you are celibate, you will be blessed tremendously in your marriage.
Absolutely.
I promise you.
We talked about this in a previous video. It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. Absolutely. Especially, and let's just be real and be fully transparent with you guys. We were having sex before we got married, but we made the decision to stop. Way before we got married. Like, when I decided to put a ring on her finger, we decided to do the counseling and everything. Before that, we needed to cut it. We needed to cut it off. And it was hard because we lived together. Yeah. And I'll be fully transparent again. A lot of people are saying, you know, Christians shouldn't live together, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, we did. Yeah. And we made it work.
Yeah. Not to say that that's something that we would tell people to do, because it's honestly not. I wouldn't say do it. Definitely not.
But that was just our path. That's where we were at. Testimony, You know, that's where we're at. And we made it work. We had to fight temptation every single night. Every single day. Absolutely. It is the toughest thing.
Don't do it. But yeah, for real, like, if you guys, and this sounds so cliche, like you'll hear it from everybody, but if you save yourself for marriage with your husband, even if you've had sex before, it's not too late. Just don't do it.
Yeah, it's different.
Just don't do it. It really is different. It really, really is.
That sex in the marriage hit different.
That's why I'm pregnant.
Just to be honest. But going back to the reasons, the why, just speaking for me, to the men, really think about what you want in that woman.
Mm-hmm. Don't settle either.
Yeah, don't settle. I mean, like why are you getting married? You got something you got to pray about, something you got to really contemplate about. Mm-hmm. Is it because you're looking for them just to have sex? Is it because you want this particular woman with a certain body type and everything like that? And this goes for women too. There's no hypocrisy going on between this, because women have standards and men have standards, which is fine. Which is fine. You can have standards, but let God work through those standards as well. Because if you're saying this is what I want and I can't have anything else, I need a wife with a big butt. I need a wife to do this, do that, blah blah blah. And God has something different for you, or God might have that, but you're not allowing Him to work.
Yes.
This is something to pray about.
There's nothing wrong with wanting your wife to be attractive or wanting your husband to have a certain body type or whatever. That's fine. But don't press in on somebody that's not right for you if, you think they have all those qualities, but then they're lacking, maybe their faith, or they're lacking something that the Lord wants to bless you with. So that's just huge. Johnny, he's the sexiest man I've ever met. Thank the Lord. And, I just got blessed with that because it's what I prayed for. I prayed, for a certain type of husband, and you should absolutely do that. But just don't press in on it and settle, or not have that reassurance from the Lord that that's the kind of man that you should be marrying. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I hope it does. It makes sense? Okay. But anyways, just figure out why you guys want to get married, and hopefully you guys can come to an agreement on what marriage means to you and what you want out of it.
Next, get in the Word.
Mm-hmm.
Get in the Word. I think that's where we have to live. That's where we should be living right now. And it gets hard. It gets tough.
Yeah.
When you're, before you're married and when you're married, because you have to find those times. It can't just be, this is what we're going to do. We're going to come home and pray every night. It's it's not easy. It's hard, especially when someone's working and when someone's not.
Or if I'm pregnant, I'm tired.
Yep. So just sacrificing, maybe it's sleep, maybe it's early in the morning, maybe it's, just figuring out some type of plan type. And it doesn't have to be perfectly scheduled every single day. God just wants to meet with you individually. Yeah. And I'm sure I know He wants to meet with, both of you, because we're one in a marriage.
Yes.
Right. So before getting married, we have to get in our Word. We have to study things individually together.
Yeah.
Whether that's just taking notes together, reading, listening, going to church, and then talking about, what we learned and how this can be applicable to our relationship and our household when we're going to have it. Yeah.
I think doing devotionals individually and together is super important. And then also pray together. That's huge. I've heard so many couples that we've helped, I guess, counsel. So Johnny and I are premarital counselors at our church with some of our best friends. I don't know if that's the right word. Counselors? We're table leaders. Let's say that. We're table leaders. And a lot of the couples would come to us and they would, tell us that they don't pray together. I don't even know what to say about that. Y'all need to be praying together. Pray together. It might be awkward at first, but who cares? That's like Johnny said, once you're married, you become one with the Lord. The three of you need to be meeting every single day, more than once a day. That's super important for sure.
And we still struggle with it. So it's a work in progress every single day. We could do it individually, which is
we
easier.
Always do it individually.
But together, it could be tough, but you work through it, because that's where you get your strength.
Yes.
That is where you strengthen your relationship. That is where you strengthen and fight temptations. Whether it's before you guys are getting married, fighting those temptations and urges of, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I want to do. We've been having sex for so long, and now it's cut off. I'm struggling and fighting. Come to the Lord with that.
Yeah.
God knows that you're going to struggle every single day if you're a man or a woman. He knows what it is. He knows how you're feeling every single day. So just talk to Him about it. And that's where you get your strength.
Yeah. And Johnny doesn't, when he says we struggle with it, it's not like we struggle to do it together. That's not it. It's it's a time thing. In our schedules are both completely different. So we have to really make the effort to make that time and cut that time out for the Lord, which is, y'all need to do that, period. There's no excuse. Another thing that's super important, and this is, pretty much for any relationship in a marriage and before marriage, but it's communication. Having communication with your future spouse is so important. Like, y'all need to be communicating about everything. There should be nothing that you should be hiding from each other. There should be, like, y'all need to talk about everything. Finances, your job, decision making, everything, even to the smallest thing. Communication is just huge. Figure out, like, how is the best way to communicate with each other. So, just for example, like in Johnny and I's relationship before we got married, we would text a lot about our fights. Don't do that. I mean, if it works for you, do what works for you. But for us, it didn't work for us. Like, he would always perceive my tone in the text message different from what I was actually saying. So that way of communication, like, yeah, we would communicate, but it wasn't the right way of communicating. So figure out the right way that you guys communicate and the best way you guys communicate.
You would piss me off in text messages.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's not the place to deal with arguments, I think.
No.
But, you know, whatever works for you guys both.
Yeah, just talk things out for sure.
Yeah.
Everything. And then also, get to know each other's love languages. That was something that John and I never really did until we took our premarital class at church. We got to know, like, our love languages, and it really helped us, like, bless each other, honestly. Like, it helped us be able to, because, like, for me, I would always love Johnny how I want to be loved, and that's not necessarily how he wants to be loved, because it's not his love language. Mm-hmm. So getting to know what his love language was really helped me bless him, because I was able to show him love the way he wants to receive it. And same vice versa, he was able to show me love the way I want to receive it. So I think that's something that's super important as well.
Yeah. God will show you what you want to know about your spouse if you just ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you stay in the spirit and the word, he'll tell you what your spouse wants.
Okay, now we are going to talk specifically to the future wives and future husbands. So, so wives, I'm talking to y'all right now. All right, listen up. Come back. Wives, don't be scared to submit to your husband. So the Bible says that you need, as you become a wife, you need to submit to your husband. So you need to submit to your husband and not be so, like, prideful and wanting to run the relationship or be controlling or whatever. This is something I had to really work on. But you need to submit to your husband. It's as simple as that.
And this is why she says this, and this is a big problem in the world today. And there's nothing wrong with a woman being strong and being on her 2 feet. Mm-mm. But when people in the world say that the woman should run the household and the woman should be able to do everything on their own, God didn't make us that way.
No.
And a lot of you guys may not, and a lot of people may not like to hear what I'm saying, and that's fine.
That's all right.
That's fine. But I'm saying just this is how God made us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when God says, or when the word says, wives, submit to your husband, that's just a command for the woman. Men, we're supposed to love love the wife, like God loves the church, and that's huge.
Yeah. So
just because that sounds like a hard job on a woman, men, we still have a hard job too, because we need to love our wives and we need to understand. We need to be super understanding of them. So those are 2 commands. It's not just on the wife.
No.
It's on the men too.
Yeah. Okay. Another one that's gonna be really hard for y'all to swallow, especially you women, those wives out there. You're gonna be moms. Oh man, this is gonna be so hard to say. Listen. Your husband needs to come first, even before your children. And some of you may not have kids yet or anything like that, but your husband, even if you are going to have children soon, we're going to have a child soon, your husband needs to come first before your son. That's just it. It is what it is. Your marriage is going to be the most important thing to that child, because you're setting the example of how you want him to be raised. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm not making no sense. Maybe it's just my pregnancy brain, but that's all right. But yeah, I mean, everything stimulates from your marriage. So it's so important to lead, or to put your marriage first in order to lead your family. I can't speak. Okay, and then the last thing I want to tell y'all is understand that men function differently. So it's really hard sometimes to, want to explain something to your husband, or you want to vent to them or something like that, and they just don't understand, or sometimes you have miscommunication, whatever it is, but understand that men function differently. Like, they literally are wired differently than women. So maybe you're out there, wanting to get some, I don't know, you're just telling your husband something, and you just want, like, validation from him. You want comfort. But he's going to be over here trying to fix something, or maybe he's really not listening to everything because he just wants to fix it. That's okay. You just have to understand that men are different. Like, women, we want to be loved, and men, y'all want to be
respected.
Yeah, it is what it is. You can't expect a man to act the way a woman would, and vice versa. Men, you can't expect women to act the way men do.
And I'm sure you know what she's talking about. Like, if your wife comes home or your wife to be comes home and you guys are sitting there talking about how she had a hard day and she's going on and on and on. Be completely honest, in your mind, you're like, okay, well, what's the point so I can get to and I can help you, right? And it's hard because that's what you want to know. You want to know how what can I do to help? Or, how can I fix this? And sometimes it just doesn't need to be fixed. They just want us to listen.
Yeah.
And it's just in our minds that we're workers. We want to really just, hey, all right, well, boom, boom, here's a checklist. This is what you should be doing. All right, this is what I think you should do. And sometimes they just don't want that. And that's hard for me. Especially if she comes on and she's giving me a 15-minute story when I could have fixed it in 1 minute. So that's something that I've had to, to work out for myself.
For sure. And then also, like, even further than that, like how I was saying that, like, men want to be respected and women want to be loved. I mean, we also, obviously, women want to be respected too, don't get me wrong, and men also want to be loved. It's just a different, it's a different aspect. It's a different type of mentality, I guess I should say.
And going back to the first point she made about wives submitting to their husbands, it's the man's job to be the man of the household. You're the provider. Obviously, with God being the head.
Yes. God
is the head of the marriage. You're the head of the household. To protect your family, to love your kids, to love your spouse, to show your future kids an example of how a marriage should be and how a man should be.
Yeah.
If you're having a son, like, it's going to be a huge responsibility for me.
We have a daughter, though.
Yeah, son or a daughter.
Yeah.
I want my daughter or my son to see this is how a man should be.
Either
and
how he should act or how she should be receiving a man.
Yeah, and how she should be, how she should be showing, the daughter, this is how I'm going to treat my husband. It's a huge responsibility.
It is.
So I take, that job of, because it's a job. It's a job being a wife, it's a job being a mother, it's a job being a father, and it's a job being the head of the household. That we take that stuff seriously.
All right, you guys, we're back. Sorry, the camera died.
Your fault.
But the last piece of advice that I want to leave with you guys is to surround yourself with like-minded couples.
It's hard.
It is very hard.
It's hard to find married couples.
Or ones that are seeking to get married, and that are, like, in the church and things like that believe in Jesus. But it's really important. So hopefully you guys can find some people.
Oh, because it helps. It definitely helps. Like, we're not saying you can't hang out with your couples. I mean, your friends that aren't engaged or aren't married. Because I have a lot of friends that are super close in my circle that are just not married. Yeah. That doesn't change our friendship and our relationship.
No, not at all. All right, you guys. That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you guys have any questions, anything else that we want to touch about or talk about, or you just need prayer requests or anything, whatever, leave it down below.
Put it down in the comments. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
We said a couple.
Go ahead, no.
We said a couple controversial things, so that the world thinks is controversial. Yes. So I wouldn't mind talking it out.
Absolutely. Always refer back to the word too. Everything you hear, any advice, whatever, always refer back to the word. That's always so important. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And stay tuned for more videos. We're going to have more videos kind of like this on different topics. And then, of course, like our regular travel and house and baby and whatever kind of vlogs as well.
All right, y'all. Peace.